Makes the catch on a slant. He's at the 40, 35. He accelerates 20, 15, 10, 5. The little guy from Stanford, the rookie, Doug Baldwin.
We are here to compete. It is the family combine.
A few years ago, I was in these same shoes, and being able to come back out here and see the kids enjoy themselves, and they're smiling and having fun and interacting back with you. It's such a rewarding feeling. I've been blessed with a platform, and I think the platform is an opportunity to express the values and the importance of doing that soulful work. You're never going to be perfect, but you strive for perfection, and that's just the mentality that I have.
The ball caught by Baldwin, makes one man miss, dives underneath, he's in! Touchdown! Seahawks! Doug Baldwin, how in the world did he catch it? A leaping catch, and a dive for the goal line, and number 89 does it again.
Yeah.
Doug Baldwin, you are amazing.
It's a game of getting knocked down and getting back up. So you have opportunities where you're not going to always be successful, but it's going to build character and build strength and fortitude and how you handle
it. This is the Pacific Northwest Showdown with Mikaela and Kate.
Hello.
This is our 1-year anniversary episode.
Huge.
It has been officially a year since we have launched the Pacific Northwest Showdown podcast, and we have a very special guest joining us today to celebrate.
Oh, yes.
And that is Seahawks Super Bowl champion, Doug Baldwin, one of the best wide receivers in Seahawks history, one of the most consistent receivers, incredible catches, great hands, one of the best route runners. If you want a wide receiver to know how to run routes, have them watch Doug Baldwin tape. Doug, thanks for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Well, we like to start off these fun interviews with kind of the same sort of question. So starting off with, what is your favorite thing about living in the Pacific Northwest?
The seasons. Absolutely. People always talk trash about it raining. I love the rain. And I grew up in Florida, so we didn't really have seasons. It was always hot and muggy. So here in when I got to the Pacific Northwest in 2011, that was the first year I saw snow. So the first time in my life I had seen snow. So that was a big deal for me. So the seasons, I love the weather here for sure.
That's amazing. And it's interesting to me because I feel like there's so many former Seahawks players that stay in the area when they come from other states and other towns and cities. Yeah. What do you think that is? Do you know what that is across the board for you as all players? Is it that you really built a foundation and a home here with your families and it feels good to stay? What is that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Cliff Averill and I were actually talking about this the other day, and I think for our specific group, because we were so close and because most of the guys decided that, they just wanted to stay here. So other guys decided they would stay here too. We're so close as a family. But then you think about guys who have been here before us and who decided to stay. I think it's the culture of this region. There's something about this region. The Pacific Northwest is you guys own that. The Pacific Northwest, it's something about it, and it's a really galvanizing culture. You got people from all walks of life, all experiences, and it's just, I don't know, it's a beautiful mixture of perspectives. And I think from our standpoint, the athlete standpoint, once we leave the game, we're kind of lost. We're trying to figure out what our next footing is and trying to grab that next footing. And Seattle's always been, at least from my standpoint and the guys that I talk to, it's always been this place where we can, explore different avenues, different curiosities, and actually find things to do in those avenues. And I don't think you can get that in many other places. There's very few places where, as an athlete, we get paid so much money, and like in other places, you'd be in the top 1%. And granted, we probably still are in the top 1%, but it's like we're not the highest paid people in this region, right? There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of amazing things. And they're not just tied to money, but it's tied to impact in the community and business in general. There's so much opportunity and so much learning that takes place. And I think that's why a lot of us decide to stay here.
Thanks for that insight, because it's always been intriguing to me. I just love seeing when you get guys go hiking together, or you're just going on bike rides. You see the social media posts. It's just like, oh God, they're all hanging out. That must be like the coolest group of people to just kick it with. So, you talk about post, football life, and as an athlete, once you retire, lots of you have families. I want to ask you this question. It's one of my favorite questions to ask, but what is your favorite thing about being a dad? I've seen some of your tweets lately. Now, cutting the crust off of, was it a PB&J sandwich? What's your favorite part about being a dad?
I mean, there's so many amazing things about being a father, but I think what I'm experiencing as my daughters are getting older is that they're teaching me so much, and I'm realizing that as a young man, there were so many things that I thought about the world, the perspectives that I had about the world, that I'm now, unlearning, and then now relearning things about, my mom, about my dad, about my wife and my family. It's just, I don't know, you see the world differently through their eyes, and the things that they care about and things that matter to them, right? Which is very little. Like, they only care about, like, do you love them at the end of the day, right? They just want to feel love at the end of the day. And they're teaching me that in a way different plane, way different level. I think that's what I find most fascinating and most amazing about being a parent, is that, when I was a child, I looked at my parents and I'm like, y'all have to have the answers. You're my parents. I expect you to have all the answers. Now I'm realizing I don't have any. But for daughters, they're teaching me the answers. They're teaching me the answers as I go. And that's pretty incredible. And I think that's what I love most about being a father.
That just didn't melt your heart right there. I don't know.
No, for real. I mean, the older I get, I'm still like, I need my mom. Like, Mom, this thing's hurting. Like, what's wrong? And she's like, I have ibuprofen, you're fine. Just like something like that. So that's really special to hear.
You look around for the adult and you're like, oh, that's
me.
I'm the adult. So, okay, better figure that out. Well, I'm sure with all this, you're kind of learning new things all the time. And I always think it's interesting to find out, like, do you have like a hidden talent or a hidden hobby that maybe not a lot of people know about that is kind of a fun, unique thing to you?
I mean, I used to go fishing all the time when I was younger. My grandfather and I would go fishing every weekend. And that's something that I've wanted to get back to doing. Just hasn't happened just yet. My kids are dominating all of my free time.
Oh, yeah.
At this stage, I mean, I got 3 kids, 3 years and under right now. So you can just imagine. And we don't have any family here. So it's just, it's just a really challenging season of life for us. So, but when I do get more time, that's what I will be doing. Because I've heard the fishing in this area, not only in, the Seattle region, but also just in the Pacific Northwest and the Northwest area in general. Heard the fishing's really fantastic out here. So I want to do that time and the chance to do so.
Yeah, I know. So your hobby right now is little kids.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's a good answer. It's
feeding and cleaning up after little kids right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. My little sister, I mentioned, she's 5. She'll be 5 September 22nd, which is when this episode launched. So she started pre-K yesterday. Okay. And they did a before and after photo, which first of all was very funny because of all sort of for all sorts of reasons, but the exhaustion. She FaceTimed me and my sister. I don't know how she knows how to do FaceTime with multiple people. Don't ask me. I don't know how to do it, but she does it to us all the time.
Tech savvy.
I go, so Betty, what'd you do at school today? She said, all we did was go outside and color. And I was just like, dang, that's the life. I was like, you didn't do any, you went outside and you colored. She goes, well, no, we colored first and then we went outside. I'm like, oh, okay, excuse me. I'm so sorry I got that mixed up there. But it is so fun, little kids, the things that they say, as they just get a little bit older and older. And I'm sure you see it with your three, how they interact and engage with each other. That's only going to be more fun to watch develop as they get older too. So that's really cool.
Yeah. My daughter, we were in the mall a couple weeks ago. And this older gentleman walks by with a beard, a white beard, and in front of everybody, as loud as she possibly can, she goes, "Mommy, is that Santa?"
Yes.
It's just in front of everybody, and it's just like, they're so innocent and so, they just have no like inhibitions of any kind. They just and say whatever they want to say. It's just very fun to watch.
I'm sure that's not the first time that man has heard that based on. I mean, I think if you grow a white beard that's like long enough, like you just have to know that that's probably what's going to happen with little kids. So
yeah.
Did he hear? Did he like turn and look?
The whole mall heard.
Gotcha.
I mean, he was a good sport about it. He smiled and laughed it off, so it wasn't a big deal. But we were a little embarrassed.
That's hilarious. I love that. All right. Well, we'll dive into a little bit more Seahawks focused questions here. We love getting to know just kind of a little bit more about who you are as a person, because I feel like those things aren't talked enough about when you're discussing, sports or talking with athletes. So I'm like, who are you as a person? Because we're all people, right?
Yep.
So we experience our day-to-day lives. You talk about how your hobby right now is helping raise your 3 little girls. And, that's very relatable to so many people in this world. It's just like that. That's a 3 under 3. Holy smokes.
It's a lot. That's a lot.
So we'll shift gears here to the Seahawks a little bit. So this will be the first season in 10 years that Russell Wilson is not under center for the Seahawks. And, I'm kind of curious because they have such a solid offense. Like when you look at the roster and especially how left tackle Charles Cross, Abe Lucas at the right tackle, how they're developing and how they looked in preseason. You still have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett on the roster, Noah Fant. Are there going to be a whole lot of growing pains for the Seahawks based off of what you've seen? Or do you think they'll do better than people are expecting them to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. If I put on my GM hat and I'm looking at the roster and the talent that's on that team, it's really compelling to me to look at it and say, like, they're building something. Like the foundation is there. I personally think they're going to surprise some folks. I think they're going to do a lot better than people expect them to do, especially with Geno coming in as now being positioned as the starting quarterback. The philosophy that Pete instilled in us and that we know to be true is that you don't need your quarterback to be a miraculous, game-changing talent, right? Like it's nice to have that. But what Pete's fundamentals are based on is that play really, really good defense, run the ball really well, and don't turn over the ball, right? And if you do that, you're going to put yourself in a place to be successful. And I think that's what they have. Like they have you just mentioned all those names on offense. They have all of those pieces in place to be at least competitive on the offensive end. And I know the defense is going to be way better than it was last year, right? I know that just in who Pete is and who Clint Hurtt is. Like I know the pieces that they're putting into place and the philosophy that they're building. I wouldn't be surprised if they, made some noise. I'm not putting a prediction out there for that, but I look at the team and I see the pieces in place and I see the culture being rebuilt to what we know it can be and what it should be. And it feels really positive right now. It feels like it's moving in the right direction.
Good. Thank you for that insight. And talking about culture too, it's just, that's the interesting part is Russell Wilson was so much part of that culture. What it felt like, right? Because you have a quarterback feels like the face of the franchise, but you had so many other key components that entire time, whether it was a Legion of Boom, solid wide receivers, and I think Kate's going to allude to this with this next question, but it takes a team. And so, Kate, I'll pass off for your next question here so I don't take it away.
You could, I mean,
I'm
you
not
could
trying to interrupt your
it's
question.
Fine. Ooh, I like it. It's a good word choice there. So yes, I mean, we currently have some great wide receivers with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Just so wonderful. And kind of curious, like from your opinion, being a wide receiver, how does a great wide receiver impact that success level that a quarterback has in any given game?
Yeah. I mean, as simple as you can possibly make it, just catch the ball when it's thrown to you. If I'm being honest, like I'm not a huge football fan. It may be weird. Like I don't actually watch a lot of football. I'm a basketball fan. I'm a huge basketball fan. And I took a lot of the lessons that I learned from basketball and I applied them to football. And what I know about like the energy and kind of like the below the surface level of the game is like there's a flow to it. There's an emotion to it, and just like in basketball, when you get in a rhythm, that's when teams like transcend their talent. And it's the same thing in football. And one of the things between a quarterback and a receiver, it's like, if the quarterback knows when they throw you the ball that you're going to catch it more times than not, they don't have to think in their mind about where I'm throwing this ball or even where I'm placing it. If I just put it in this person's vicinity, they're going to catch it. That's a real impactful confidence that you instill in the quarterback, right? Because at some point, sometimes like the quarterback may be looking over to the left or in a different direction, and that side of the concept or that side of the play may not work out. But they know that this person is on the backside that they trust and they believe in and they see them, and maybe they got a little space open and they feel confident to throw the ball, right? That's where I think you take that relationship to the next level. Is you have a receiver who, Tyler Lockett is a prime example of this now. You throw him the ball, you trust that Tyler's going to come down with it, or at the very least, nobody else is going to catch it, right? When you have that level of confidence and that ability of a playmaker on the outside, it opens so many things up for your offense, because now not only does the corner have to be locked in and accounted for that receiver, but then the safety has to play over top, or at least that safety is going to be thinking in the back of their mind, okay, Tyler's over here. I got to go pay attention. And now you throw DK in the mix, where DK is just an animal, and it's just, how do you stop this guy? Now you open up everything underneath. And that's where I think the run game comes into play, which again falls right into Pete's philosophy. If you can play good defense, control the game with the run game, have some weapons on the outside to take the top off to open up the run game, you're going to put yourself in a good position. And I think that's where they're at right now.
I would agree. And I'm really excited about this running back room, just seeing the development of DJ Dallas, Travis Homer. He looks like he's gotten a little bit more stacked there. The physicality that the, running back room brings. Rashad Penny, how he just, when he's healthy in the last 6 weeks last season, I want nothing more than to see him just continue to dominate in the run game. And I think this offensive line is going to offer that opportunity. Like you said, when you have receivers like DK and Tyler, they have to make sure that they're like accommodating those route runners. They can't just completely decide that they're going to defend the run game. So I think it really offers the balanced offense that they've been wanting. And we're a different team now. And I think that's the most important thing. It's like, this is a different team, and it feels different for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like just these little pieces have come and gone,
Yeah, I feel that too. When, just observing the conversations and the interviews, I do feel like the culture is getting more where it's meshed, where it doesn't feel like it's individual pieces. It does feel like it's a cohesive unit that's trying to build. And then to your point about the running backs, and I'm I may be a weird wide receiver when it comes to this, but I do believe that's how you win championships, is you play really, really good defense. You have a good defense and you have a great running game, right? And the receivers are just used to convert those third downs and keep the chains moving. That's how I always believed in football. And so to your point about the running backs, I think that this running back group could be one of the best running back groups in the NFL. And I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb by saying that, but if you look at the talent that's in that room and what they did at the end of the season and how they progressed and added to that even this year, sky's a limit for them. And when, again, you go back to the philosophy that is, how do you be successful on the football field? If you can control the clock with the run game, if you prevent the other team from being out there on offense, right, by controlling the run game, and you have the running backs that you do in that backfield in Seattle, I don't know. Again, I just think they're gonna surprise a lot of folks. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what's gonna happen.
Hey, I'm hopeful. I'm like, okay, low expectations, high hopes. I don't know how that works out, but hopefully, it can. So do you feel like there's going to be a key impact player on offense and on defense that are really going to stand out and really help this team kind of rise above the expectations? Or do you really think it's going to be this team effort where it's not going to be one individual person that is really helping elevate the game?
Yeah, I don't know if it's one individual person, and I would never say that because it's a team sport, right? But if you want me to give a little bit more specificity, like a group, I would say, I think on the offensive side of it, we mentioned it. I think the running backs they're going to be that group, right? And a very close second is that offensive line. If the offensive line and the running backs can gel together and create something offensively, I think they will be unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball. Because in my view, there's nothing you can do to stop Tyler and DK as a combination. And so that offensive line and the running backs, that's what's going to take that offense to the next level. And then defensively, you got a lot of new pieces in place, but the guys who have been there are those two safeties, right? And I really love those two safeties. And I think a lot of onus is on Jamal Adams. Jamal, he was brought in to be a playmaker, and he is a playmaker, and he's got to be a playmaker. And I think this new philosophy on defense, the way that they're changing the scheme and how they're going to be utilizing players, I think Jamal Adams is going to be able to showcase his talent once again. He's an impact player. We know that. And there's a lot of things that he's capable of doing. I know he got a knock in the passing game past couple of years, but he's a smart player. He's an instinctive player who can make a lot of plays if he's put in the right position to do so. And I think they're going to be able to get back to that with the pieces that they have now and the way that they're building their scheme. So I would say the offensive line and running backs, it's a close 1 and 2 there. But then the safeties on the defensive side, they're the ones that are going to make the big plays for us on defense.
I love it. I agree.
I like it. Yeah, I was like that. Yep. I like it. So we've got this kind of new culture developing. We've got this whole like teamness happening, and we've like maybe surprising some people this season. Based on kind of who Pete and John have kind of brought in and they've locked in over the next, now and then maybe over the next couple years, do you think that maybe you could see the Seahawks making it back to like, I don't know, the Super Bowl by like 2024 season? And if yes or no, like what kind of moves or acquisitions do you think we would need to kind of make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to tell, honestly, but I think, Pete and John, they're very good at focusing in the moment and doing what is best for the team to get them to the next stage so that then when they get there, they can focus on, okay, what do we do next, right? I know John and Pete have a big picture plan, but there's so many variables that change in the process of that. You can't put all your eggs in that basket to make that happen.
Sure.
But what now is that they've laid the foundation. You have the receivers, you have the offensive line that feels like it's going in the right direction with those 2 tackles, right? You got bookend tackles now that are young and probably going to be there for a long period of time. Solidify the offensive line. You can continue to solidify the defensive line, building out those trenches. Yeah, I could see them making a lot of noise in the NFC West. And depending on what happens this year with Geno and with Drew Lock, I think Geno is going to surprise some folks and how well he's going to take care of the ball. He may not be, what we've come to know as explosiveness on the offensive side of the ball, but he may be, because you still got DK and Tyler there, and he has some rapport with them, and they didn't, they seemingly didn't miss too much of a beat when he had to go in for Russ last year. But depending on what happens there, that's going to dictate what happens next year in the draft. And I think John did a great job of positioning himself well to have some ammunition going into that draft next year to be able to add some key components to this team.
Mhm.
And so, Mikaela, to your point, I do think there's some noise to be made if they continue on this pathway, because they have the foundation laid. And I said this to, I forget who I was talking to the other day about this, but this feels very reminiscent around 2011,
Mhm.
right?
I've said the same thing to Kate. I'm like, oh God, this feels like 2011, 2012, just that ramping up, and then boom,
Yeah.
2013 happens.
Yeah, you get this feeling like they've laid the foundation, they've got the pieces, they
Mhm.
know what they're building, they know what they know what this looks like. There's maybe a couple of pieces that they may need to pull in. You don't know. You just wait to see what happens this year, and then you see what happens. But I think they're positioning themselves well to be successful in that 2024, 2025 range for sure.
We all love to hear it. Let's be honest. If we're
Yeah.
Seahawks fans, that's like, we're just like wanting a little bit of something to be excited for here. So
Some light.
I think it's possible, but again, as you said, it is too early to tell, because there's a lot of games still to be played and to kind of see how people develop and the people that we selected this season, although it looks really, exciting. Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, Boya Mafe. So just to see how those players develop, Abe Lucas. So we appreciate you elaborating a little bit on the Seahawks and their current situation. I do want to change gears before we let you go and get back to your day today, but there's something that's really important to me that I enjoy talking about, and it's really important to bring awareness to, and that's mental health. And I read an article the other day that from Brady Henderson and ESPN about kind of your experience and your adjustments and your shift from being an NFL player to the work that you're doing now as a CEO and founder of your own two companies. And so in that article, you had mentioned that during the first 8 months of your retirement that you had experienced, and you said, I'm not a doctor, but you experienced 8 months basically of clinical depression.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on whether or not you think that athletes can be better supported from the leagues that they play for through that transition from retirement or potentially season or career-ending injuries. Does the league provide support with that process, or are you kind of left to your own devices to take care of yourself in that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid question. And the NFL has done a better job over time of trying to provide resources. Can they be better at it? Of course. And I think, that's going to be a constant, as society changes and as needs change. I think organizations like the NFL, they also have to adapt and grow. That being said, I do put more onus on us as individuals, as players. Like, I heard going in, when I was a rookie, I heard going in like, hey, make sure you put the right people around you because this shit is hard. Is basically what the message was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a young kid, you think you're invincible, and none of those problems, and you're going to play forever, and you're never going to get old, and your body's never going to get brittle, and all the things. But then it comes down to that time, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks. And I would like to think that I was really prepared for that stage of life, thinking that, okay, I have the right resources. I had 3 counselors at the time. I had friends and family around, that a good support system, but it was still really, really difficult. So I put more of the onus on the players to know going in that it's going to be difficult, but also to know, like, there's nothing that I don't want to say there's nothing you can do. Obviously you can put some things in place to make it not as painful of a transition, and maybe not as devastating when it comes to like decision making, or feeling so depressed and so down that you then go make a decision that's terrible for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I do think there's some things that you can put in place. However, I do think it's just a hard transition in general. There's nothing to do about that. It's just knowing that going in and expecting that challenge, and then facing that challenge when you are faced with it. So yeah, it was a very, very difficult time. My daughter was born 3 days after I retired too. My first daughter was, so a whole bunch of transitions, and it's just a lot going on. So, yes, I do think that the NFL is they're trying to be better at it, and they should continue to try to be better at it. But at the end of the day, I think as players, we got to take some more responsibility in this and make sure we're being thoughtful about that time of our career or era in our time when it gets to that point.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's important for people to know, number one, that no matter where you're at in your life, or as you said, your daughter was born 3 days after your retirement. And although there can be positive things happening in our lives, no matter what, it's transition. And transition for any of us is hard to navigate and to adjust to. And we're very much creatures of habit. And so when there are big life transitions like that, especially multiple at one time, those things are hard, whether they're positive or things that maybe you weren't anticipating, and it's a little bit more harder to process. So I appreciate you being transparent, because it's a very real feeling to have, regardless of those situations.
No, for sure. Appreciate you giving me the space to even say that, because I think and I'm learning this as I go too. When I was a player, we thought individually, we thought that we were invincible. Like, none of this affects us, but it does. And, I look back on some of the decisions I made when I was playing and some of the things that I did. And I'm like, I'm responding to trauma, instead of recognizing it as me responding to trauma. I'm just saying like, oh, it's just, I don't even know what I was saying at the time, but I'm looking back on it as like, I was just responding to trauma. And I think that's really grounding for me, because now I can see, okay, I'm just another human being, right? And I gotta admit, there's parts of me and other individuals, other players, I think a lot of us do this, is that when you're in that realm, you start to put yourself on a pedestal. You start to think of yourself as more than just a human being, right? Because you have to some degree to survive in that world. But then when you leave the game and you recognize, like, I'm just another human being, just like, everybody else. And then you look at it for what it is, it's like, there's some learning lessons there, right? And I think me being able to share that, I hope that fans on the outside also look at that as the same thing. Like, give these guys some grace. Like, it's a really hard environment to be in. And it's a lot of young guys that are in that environment, and they're learning lessons, really, really hard lessons as they go along. There's a lot of fun and fortune and fame that come along with it. Don't get me wrong, but there's also challenges that come with that too. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for the multi-million-dollar athlete, but what I'm just saying is that they are also human at the end of the day.
Well, and that's the key component. And I think that that's what I like to highlight here, is that especially in the world of social media and the things that you guys are exposed to.
Oh yeah.
Heaven forbid you have one drop or a bad game.
Yeah.
Or you throw a pick, or you miss a tackle.
I hate there's football as a player.
Look, as somebody that loves the game and I watch the game, I am 100% a couch coach, and I know that you guys can't hear me, but I would never, and I do my best to not go out there and bash players for moment, because we're human. And I think that's the most important part. Like, none of us are out there sacrificing our bodies to put on a show for people. Like, people play the game because they love the game and they're passionate about it, and they have a talent and a skill set to be able to do that. But there's also the component of saying, like, I'm on this world stage and people are here cheering us on and supporting us. And so there's so many different levels of, you might be getting paid a lot to do this, but at what cost? Because it's a mental cost, it's a physical cost, it's your time, it's your time with your family, there's so many things that you're also sacrificing to be able to do this. And those things aren't necessarily taken into account by everybody. And I try to keep that at the forefront of my mind, which is why we like to ask these questions. And I know that Kate has at least one more question for you if I have a little more time to give before we wrap up here.
Yeah. It sounds like, there is still kind of that maybe stigma surrounding mental health and needing support, and it's not going to be me and everything, kind of with society in general, but also with athletes. And so, what are things or what are ways that maybe society and just our communities can help kind of break that stigma down about mental health and make it even more accessible, I guess, in terms of like help and support and just even discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of systematic things. I mean, I know there's a lot of systematic things that could be different and changed to impact society's mental health for the better. I don't know if those things will be changed, right? It's just we live in a society that's, to be completely honest, is more focused on the bottom line, how much money we're making rather than health and well-being of the individuals. And that's always been the case. And so I don't know how much of that is going to change. I do think on an individual level that there is more of an emphasis on maintaining your health and taking care of your body. And so I do see more of the opportunity available. But again, that also lends itself to like trying to make money, right? So there's a quality conversation, I guess, right? Like I encourage everybody to have a therapist. That doesn't mean all therapists are good, right? You got to find a quality therapist. And so to answer your question about what we can be doing, I think from an individual standpoint, it's just like, you never know what the person across from you has been going through. You never know what their life is like, behind the scenes or away from social media. And a lot of the times, we hear these crazy stories and things that happen in schools or, in just in public in general. And then people are like, well, we never saw that. We never expected that from this person. They were always smiling and always happy, but it goes back to the point, you never know what somebody's dealing with. And so, I think you guys have heard me say this. I know you see me tweet it a lot. Love is always the answer. To me, it doesn't matter who you're dealing with. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing or what you're going through or what that other person is going through. We can always bring love to the table, compassion to the table. And I'm not saying that I know I don't do that in every situation. It's really hard to do sometimes, especially when people are getting on your nerves. But if we can have a more intentional effort to do that in those moments that we, don't feel like doing so, I think make a big, drastic difference in our society. And I say that with kind of tongue in cheek, saying that like, I don't ever think we will live in a utopian society. Just don't think we will, right? That's a way bigger conversation that maybe we can have one day. But I think if more individuals could be in the spaces that they're in with more compassion and grace and understanding for their help, for their fellow human being who's also living on this planet, on this rock that's tumbling through space, if we could have that perspective, I think we could change things. And so, to your point, that's what I would encourage folks to do, because again, you never know what somebody's going through.
I love that. I actually saw a hat the other day that said, "Make America Kind Again." And I was just like, I love that too, because I think that if we just, take that minute and think about that other person and what somebody else is going through, or, how we're feeling and how that affects how we're treating other people and things like that. And so just having a little bit more of that grace and compassion and awareness could really just make a big difference, like ripple out, like a pond, or throw a rock into or something. I don't know.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, it's about not making assumptions, like never assume that what's happening. And a bad mood might be something that is none of your business as to why maybe somebody's treating you a certain way. And so having the grace, even though you might not want to, because you don't have the context, could extend that person the opportunity to feel how they feel. And maybe you don't know that you helped them be able to have that space to express those feelings. So I appreciate you elaborating on all of these things, from, talking about why you love the Pacific Northwest, talking to us about your kids and funny things that they say at the mall, the Seahawks, and then mental health. I mean, all of these things are things that I think matter, especially to the point of mental health. Please, I agree with you 100%. Therapy is amazing. Not all therapists are great. I've gone through therapy and I have had one session with somebody and I've had 15 sessions with another person. So make sure that you find the right fit and take care of yourself. Take care of your heart, your mind, your body. It is precious. And Doug, thank you so much for giving us so much time today and for talking about all these things. I could talk to you all day. I won't do that. But maybe we can continue conversations down the road.
I would love that. I appreciate you guys giving me the space.
Thank you. All right, we are back with Doug Baldwin. He, there's just too much that went down after 2 weeks of the Seahawks opening the season, and we could not leave discussing those two games out of our 1-year anniversary episode. And
round two.
That's right. Back again.
And we're back. So let's just dive right into it. There's some really interesting topics that let's first launch with week 1. Starting from the very beginning. The question that everybody had going into that game: will the fans boo Russell Wilson when he comes onto the field? And based off of polls, it was very likely that that's the experience he would receive. What are your thoughts on the fans booing Russell Wilson as he ran out of the tunnel?
Mikaela, I'm so glad you asked this question. Looking at it from a competitive standpoint, of course, right? Whoever is the opposing quarterback, the opposing team, you're trying to do as an organization, as a culture, you're trying to do whatever you can to disrupt their thought process, their mindset going into the game, right? So, of course, that was to be expected. Not to mention, obviously, there's history there. Him previously working, being with the Seahawks. So, of course, that was going to happen. But I will say this, though, and I, look, we can have a lot of fun with all the storylines and all the, the history that's all involved in this. We can have a lot of fun with that, but let's not get confused about, booing the competitor, right? Booing in a competition rather than booing the person. Let's separate those two, because at the end of the day, this is still a human being out there on the football field, right? It's not a zoo animal. So, let's just be very clear about that. But obviously, it was an amazing game. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that's how I felt about it.
That's an interesting. I like that you say it's not a zoo animal. These are human beings out on the field. But I was watching for Thursday Night Football, the Bills, that for week 1, and you hear them running out into the field, and it's, Rams house and all of that. They're greeted with very loud boos. And it just reminds you that the opposing team, when they run out, are regularly greeted by boos. And it felt different, probably because Russ was the one leading that team out and the other emotions that came along with it. But that is right. So in your experience, when you go into somebody else's house and you go to play, are you always booed when you come on the field?
Well, I expect not only to be booed, but I expect to hear things that, are not PG-13 related, I expect that. And also on the field. It's never, I should say this, sometimes it is personal, right? Like player to player on the field. And most times it's not. It's just, you're battling, you're being a competitor. Just like, on the basketball court, how guys used to talk trash to each other all the time. It's no different. And so, of course, you want the fans to be engaged with that as well, right? That's what makes, I can't call it C-Link anymore, Lumen Field, right? That's what makes Lumen Field so special, is you get the fans involved in it. And it makes a big difference. And so, it's to be expected. So we shouldn't have been surprised by that.
So a lot of former Seahawks players seemed like they were there to watch the game unfold. And there seemed to be lots of excitement and very interesting social media posts that went out after the win. Your tweet included with that, by the way. That was fantastic. So outside of having been a Seahawk and continuing to feel connected to the team, did this win mean maybe more to former players than any other win in the recent past, just kind of like it did for fans?
Potentially. To be quite honest, most of us were there just because KJ was raising the flag, right? But yeah, obviously there's some history there too. And, things that, I don't know, just that are not important to get into today, right? At some point, I'm sure they'll be addressed, and but it's when you're on a football team and when you have so many egos and so many people like competing at that level, right? And not to mention to have the success that we did, you're going to have issues, right?
Yeah.
It's par for course. But that being said, of course, right? Like it's a fraternity. And when somebody is no longer part of that, existing fraternity because they go to another team, of course, there's going to be some fire there. And of course, there is some history behind that as well. But again, I don't think anybody was surprised by that.
I just loved
your tweet. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, it was like
I love that gift. That it's like the perfect. It's the pettiness in her face is like.
Oh yes, it speaks
perfect.
volumes. Speaks volumes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and I'm sure you've seen this video going around because Tyler Lockett was mic'd up for the game against the Broncos.
Yeah.
A lot of people were surprised of something that Tyler caught on to, which was that Russell Wilson was using the same hand signals. Is that surprising as like a former player that wasn't changed, or is that like almost like, is that surprising? Because that was surprising to fans that he wouldn't change it up.
No, it's not surprising. We've had that issue before. Like other teams would know our play calls and our signals, and we'd be wanting to change them, and some people didn't want to change them for whatever reason. So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like just hearing him be like, it's a go route, like he's doing, and so you got to change that up, I guess, because now everybody knows it's out there.
Yeah,
it is. But to give him, to play devil's advocate though, when you're in that, he's in a new organization, a new environment, like he wants to keep all the similar things, right? And I know that's giving him an easy out because he should have probably changed it. But at the end of the day, like you're trying to keep as much of what you have previously known intact so that you can go out and play free. So should he have changed it? Probably, because he should have known Tyler was going to be on it. Of all people, Tyler was going to see it for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's everybody that I've talked to about it is always just like, I can't believe they use the same ones, but maybe it's more common than fans realize. So that's good to know. Well, okay. So the first half of the game, Gino was looking great. He protected the ball. He threw the 2 touchdowns to the tight ends. He was able to escape and continue down that look down the field and just make the plays when he needed to. Right. So since the first half of week 1, though, the Seahawks have been, they've been like 6 quarters without scoring on an offensive drive. So how much of that is like on Gino and how much of that is just that the, Niners defense was maybe just that great?
Well, you got to give credit to the 49ers defense, right? And, I have obviously close friends with Sherm, so we have, deep conversations about all of that stuff. And he has always talked about the 49ers defense being a good one. And so, got to tip your hat to them. They played a really good game, especially in the second half of that game. But, right, wrong, or indifferent, the ball falls on Gino. He's got to make those plays. He's got to get into the end zone. And, whether it's all on him or not, he's the quarterback. So he's got to take that, right? I will say this about Gino, though. He has, aside from not scoring in those 6 quarters, he's looked really good to me. Like his completion rate is, I think it's above 80% right now, which is unheard of for going into 2 games. Like that's pretty phenomenal. And I do think that there are some, there's just some kinks to work out because this is a brand new team, right? You got a lot of young guys and they're communicating and seeing things differently. There's going to be some rough patches. So it should be expected. But I will say this, the foundation of what they're building and the nuance of the details that they're going through right now, it looks good to me. Now, obviously, they need to capitalize and obviously find a way to score points. But at the end of the day, what the foundation that they have looks really solid to me.
Yeah. I noticed that the run game, it took a little bit for them to get going. I didn't feel like, Gino was able to find the he'd dump it off. Hopefully there's some, yards after the catch. But I felt like, you hear Coach Carroll talk about opening up the game for Geno and that he can, launch the ball a little bit more, get the passing game going. Will that open it up for the run game to start like breaking loose? Because I feel like they've been really contained the first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be seen, right? Like if you get those opportunities down the field, then then the defense has to adjust, and that may open up some running lanes early on. But I will say this: let me go back and say, just like, look, the first game was very emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the city itself, the fan base, and also the players, right? It was a huge win, and it felt really, really good. And I can see, and again, this is a young team, so we have to give them some grace in this. Like there is a lot of emotional energy that's spent and leading up to that game and then after that game. Mm-hmm. And then, you may have some level of confidence that may not be genuine, mm-hmm. right? But it's built off of just all that emotion that you went through. And I think Pete spoke to that really well, just that it was a humbling experience, right? And again, it's a young team, so you got to give them some grace in that. But to your point, Mikaela, I think if it always, the philosophy that Pete has always had is always predicated off of the run game, right? It's play stout defense, run the ball so you can control the clock. And then when the defense gets sucked up from the run game, then you throw it over the top. And I think it's just part of the process. It will get there, but you got to establish that. And that's going to take a few games. And so I think it's just patience.
So because we do have a lot of great rookies on the team this year. So, you kind of, whenever you start a new job, it's kind of like you have that, not excuse, but you can be like, I'm new, for football, for like being in the NFL, how long do you kind of get that? Is it like 1 season? Is it like 2 or 3 seasons?
Game 7.
Okay. You have to have it together by then.
Game 7. Game 7, at that point, it's like, look, you've been here long enough. You know your reads, you know the rules. Like if you're missing your assignment, there's got to be a bigger conversation there. I mean, for us, I shouldn't say for the entire team, right? Like this is, I mean, Tyler would probably tell you that my expectations are usually too high. But for us in the receivers room, it was always 7 games. You got 7 games to figure it out. And then after 7 games, there's no more excuses, right? Like we need you to step it up because this team is counting on you to do your job if you're playing in the game. So 7 games is that's the cushion.
Okay.
And there's a lot of rookies that have seen the field. I mean, Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, Boye Mafe, Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant. I mean, there's a lot of rookies that are getting playing time, which I think is great because I think that will help them develop when they get the actual live game time action. But I was curious to hear what your thoughts were on that. It's very specific. Game 7. Am I going to be a hard ass week 7 now? And I'm going to be tweeting, being like they have no more excuses.
Baldwin said,
Doug told me that this is the game. Get it together. Oh my God.
Look at it like this. Look at it through this lens. So like the first game is a wash, right? Like it's just that there's so many jitters. So it's brand new. Your routine is brand new. The whole experience is brand new, right? So the first game is just a wash. The second game, it's like, okay, I did this last game. Let me see if it works in this game, right? Typically it does, right? Typically there's going to be some mistakes. So second game is also a wash. The third game is like, okay, I feel like I'm getting my routine, right? But it's still really a test at that point. The fourth and fifth game is like, okay, I feel good about this. This is my cadence now. The sixth game is probably, that's probably the major test because you feel comfortable in your routine and then it's going to get tested. And then depending on what happens in the sixth game, the seventh game is like, okay, either I need to shift or I'm good where I'm at and let's build from here. So I feel like the seventh game gives you enough time to get through the process, decide who you are on that team, football player, and then move forward. So 7 games would be my number.
I like it. It gives us a very,
Mikaela definitely is going to be like on game 7 being like, okay, so like she's gonna be
I'll be fine
taking notes or something.
Honestly, watching it, so the whole time we were watching the game against the 49ers, first of all, we were unpacking a bunch of stuff because of our remodel and we're getting stuff back in the kitchen. So I'm like partially watching the game, unpacking boxes. It's fine. Yeah. It was the most calm I've been while we were like losing massively ever. And I think I was just like, because I kept telling myself, well, we beat the Broncos. Like, I'm fine.
Yep.
We beat the Broncos.
Yep.
We'll see how long that lasts for me before I stop saying that.
By game 7.
By game
Mikaela, By
7.
game 7.
Okay.
You have to
Game
stop.
Game 7.
Yeah.
Good to know. Cool. So looking ahead to the game against Atlanta on the weekend, what do you think the offense is there anything specifically that they would need to change or do to actually get going, like in scoring some points offensively? Like what's stopping them from moving forward?
I don't think anything's stopping them. I think it's just, again, it's just the journey. It's the process for this young team. The number one thing offensively, and I know this may sound weird coming from a receiver, is that you've got to establish the run, especially in the system that Pete has built. If you establish the run, then everything comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, looking forward to it, like I anticipate and expect them to really establish the run, and focus in on those details. And then once they do that, obviously Gino showed the propensity to be able to hit his receivers when they're open because, he's the most accurate quarterback in the league through 2 games by a wide margin. And so I expect things to start to fall in place a little bit. Now, this is one of those games. This is the 3rd game. It's a key game too, where just emotionally as a player, like you're coming off a big win in Denver, you get humbled in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we kind of see who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see if it's true of what we believe. And so this is going to be a game that I think is going to be defining for these young guys, not just this season,
Mm-hmm.
but for their careers, right? Like, can I do this? Can I consistently do this? This is a 3rd game. And everybody says, like, when you try to break a habit, it's like the third day or whatever, the 3rd time you do it, that's the hardest time, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is that game. Once they get over this hump and they get in that routine again, then I feel like that's when they're going to take off. But to answer your question, they got to establish the run game because everything else will come from there.
So, and in thinking about this with like all these rookies, we have such a huge season in terms of like travel. I'm a part of it. The Seahawks have this huge season of travel. So for these new guys who are coming into the system, how is the schedule that we have this year going to be impactful on them versus like, some of the other team schedules where they don't have nearly as many time zones to cross and miles to go and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge for sure, right? But I will say this, the Seahawks organization, they typically have a great plan in place to mitigate those issues, right? Like, yeah, if you're traveling to the East Coast, it's a totally different time when you're waking up and when you're playing the game. And so your body is not used to that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that you can do, habits that you can put in place. Like number one is like not sleeping on the plane on the way there, right? For when I finally implemented that strategy, it was a big difference for me because then my body could quickly get accustomed to where we're going, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they all have to learn that. And it's really good that they learned that this year. Like they're getting a lot of hard challenges this year, which is really good for them because it's going to set them up for the rest of their careers. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think obviously it's going to be challenging and the games are going to be challenging because the nature of what it is. But long term, I think it's beneficial.
I feel like historically the Seahawks have been pretty good going and playing in the East Coast and playing East Coast time.
Yeah, not too bad.
Not too bad. I'm really excited about their game in Germany. We're not going because as educators, it's really hard to get time off that time of year to just pick up and go to Germany, which would be awesome. But
would be amazing.
Are you planning on going?
I wish I could go, but the 3-year-old, the 2-year-old, and the 8-week-year-old probably won't let me.
Yeah. I know.
That makes sense. Fair.
Yeah.
Super cool. Well,
so fun.
Any last thoughts about what Seahawks fans should expect from this season after we've seen 2 games complete now, which they felt very different from one another. So it really makes it hard to gauge as a fan, like what direction is this potentially going to go into? But any final thoughts on what we can expect this season based off of what you see?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, like you always want to win, right? The expectation is that every time you step on the field, you're going to win, right? But I think you got to taper those expectations just a little bit because again, this is such a young team. And so instead of looking at more, the win-loss column, I think us as fans now, we should look at more of the progress of these young players, right? Like I'm really interested in seeing how these corners react to just, time and time again getting targeted, right? Like there's going to be times where they're going to make great plays, and there's times that they're going to get something's going to happen. And so how do you respond to that, right? One of the things we used to say in the locker room all the time is like, yeah, I don't really care how you look when you step on the field. I want to know how you respond when you get punched in the mouth and you taste blood in your mouth for the first time, right? A lot of people back down from that. They cower away from that because, it is a hard sport. It's a violent sport. But who steps up to the plate, licks their lips, and gets back in there and goes head first into it again, right? That's what I'm looking for, because those are going to be the pillars for the future of this organization that then's going to help you get back to the heights that you want to get to. And so that's what I'm interested in. I'm not so concerned about the win-losses because at some point they will come. But that progress for these young fellows, I think that's more important at this stage.
Seeing Tariq Woolen out there, he's sticky.
He's
sticky. And I'm excited to see his development. I know that he's had a few PIs called on him and stuff, but he actually did save a touchdown by forcing, getting a PI called on him, and then happened that the defensive line forced a fumble at the goal line against the Broncos, 2 drives in a row. Holy smokes. That was super cool.
Not always.
That's not how that works out all that often. So, I'm really excited to see how those rookies develop and how they, as you said, take kind of those punches to the mouth. It is humbling, but you do have to, there's such a mentality to it, and being right in your mental, like, I guess this is my kind of last question that I'd love to pick your mind on, but how much of the game for you was mental over physical?
Most of it was mental. Obviously the physical part of it is you got to take care of your body, and you got to prep yourself in order to perform on Sundays. But a lot of that is mental as well, and there's times where your body's telling you, no, I don't want to do this, but you got to go up and catch that ball, right? Or there's times when you're crossing the middle and you see that safety and you're going to get hit, but it's like, we need this first down. So I'm just going to do what I got to do, There is, I think Yogi Berra's famous quote, he says 90% of the game is half mental, right? Yeah, do the math on that one.
Thank you.
Right.
I only teach 4th grade math. We don't go that high.
No, but there's a lot of mental gymnastics that you have to go through in order to establish kind of the callus, if you will, to go out and do this week in and week out, It is a hard game. It's a hard game, and it does hard things to your body and to your mental. And you got to find a way. Jermaine used to always say this, you got to find a way to find a way, And these early years, that's going to establish whether these guys can do that. And they need to go through hard, challenging times in order to find themselves. You have to get lost in order to find yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so this is that phase for them. So everybody at this level is talented physically. Everybody has a skill set that is supernatural, if you will, right? But what separates the good from the great and from the elite is the mental part of the game. Can you get hit in the mouth, taste that blood, lose your teeth, and get back up and keep coming, right? It's a savage sport, and you got to be a savage in order to be elite in it. So, and that's mental. That's all mental.
100%. Yeah. I could talk mental game all day.
It's my favorite part of the game.
Yeah. If it was playing softball and stuff, it's not the same as football, because I feel like there's actually a different kind of mental game that goes along with it. But having the intelligence and the knowledge of the sport itself that makes you a better player, and then all the components that come along with it, like as an athlete, the mental component for me was always what stood out. And as a psychology major, of course, then that marries my love and passion for the mind, and then how that interacts with the body. So super cool. I appreciate you elaborating on that a bit.
Yeah.
And, we really appreciate you taking more time.
Yeah.
Because you felt, as we felt, it was also important that we connect on how these 2 games went, what it means for the Seahawks, what we look for in the future for them. And gosh, you've been like the coolest,
So nice.
most awesome guest for season 2, episode 1.
Yay.
Appreciate that.
And
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
oh,
Yeah.
of course,
yeah.
you can come on anytime you want. You could,
If you get bored, just let us know. You can come
if you're,
back.
if you're
I'll
like,
let-
I'll be your Seahawks consultant.
When I get tired of these kids, I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
You can be
Totally.
like, Mikaela, Kate, I know that you guys work with kids all day, but
Can you please say that I need to come and talk on your show so I can escape for like 10, 20 minutes? Sure. Like, no problem.
That's fine.
Deal.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Low
Thank
key.
you.
Yeah, it was low key.
And
I'm finally legal. 21 years old today.
Yay.
I was wondering, honestly, I was just like,
Yay.
he has to be 21 by now. I mean,
Yeah. Finally.
so, I mean, do you know what you're drinking? Are you gonna
I don't. I think probably still some water.
water is
go.
a good option. Stay
I may
hydrated.
get a little crazy and get some Coke. We'll see.
Whoa, love it. Love it.
Some
Yeah.
sugar, some caffeine.
You know, on my 21st birthday, fun fact, I ordered a virgin rum and Coke,
Oh,
which is literally just Coke, but I wanted to sound like I was ordering something that wasn't just Coke. So I
Yeah.
did that. And the
Okay.
waitress was not amused in any way. No, it was bad.
yeah. Your 21st birthday. You're supposed to do something other than a virgin rum and Coke.
I know, but I didn't, I was like, I wasn't like wanting to drink at the time, but I wanted to still go out and be like, it's my birthday. I want to order something fun. So I was like virgin rum and Coke. And the woman was just like, she looked at me like she was like, had such a day and was not into my tomfoolery and was just like, looked at my friend and just goes, and what are you going to have? And I was like, sorry.
Yeah, my 21st birthday, I went to school at WSU and I had an exam the next morning. So I was like, you guys, we're gonna have to wait.
You were
for this
partying.
What?
You were partying. You went to WSU, so you were
I-
partying.
You want to know what I did? This is embarrassing, and Kate hates this place. Okay, I went to Applebee's with a few of my friends in Moscow, Idaho. Okay, Doug, no
I love
judgment.
Applebee's. I'm not
Oh, you
judging.
like? I love their boneless wings, which sounds ridiculous.
I just
'cause
have had,
people
like-
judge me.
I've had
I
like
don't
the
know.
weirdest Applebee's experience. And maybe it's not Applebee's. Maybe it's just the random times I'm there, but it never works out for me. And I'm not going to blame Applebee's. It just coincidentally is always at an Applebee's. So
Well, you may have like the Applebee's curse, but Applebee's
I
for me,
might.
that's my spot. The bone-in traditional classic wings with extra wing sauce on the side. That's what you have to do that.
Okay, I'll try that for sure. Kate, you
Yeah.
get to go to Applebee's.
I'll make sure to never go
Boneless.
with I'll make sure to never go with Doug though,
Well,
so I
then-
don't mess it up for him. Like if I mess it up for you, that's different. But if I don't want to mess it up for Doug, so
She's already messed it up for me. That and the Cheesecake Factory.
that's like a whole different thing.
You messed up Cheesecake Factory.
The Cheesecake Factory just has such a big menu that it has advertisements. Like if your menu is so big, you have to have advertisements in it. Like that's too big of a menu.
Bro.
I used to like
Their bread's
used-
really
their bread's amazing and their food is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with their food. But I go and I'm like, this is too many choices. Like, what are you trying to be?
yeah. The menu's too big. My wife says it all the time. So yeah, you're right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I
Too
mean,
big.
but if someone's like, hey, you have to come with me to Cheesecake Factory, like I'll go. But it's going to take me a long time to figure out what I want because the menu's too big. And this one, Mikaela will always get the same thing everywhere. And I'm like, always like, I want to try something different every time I go and like see what they've got. But there's too many choices.
I know what I like and I stick with it because then if I get something that I've never had before and I don't like it, then I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I should have gotten what I like. So since she likes to try things, I'll just try things off of her plate.
Yeah.
Right.
And then if I like it, maybe I'll get it next time. But that's also rare. I just stick with what I like.
She always orders and like they give her menus places. And I'm like, you don't even need to hand her that menu because she doesn't need it. She's just going to order this.
Yeah. Mikaela, I'm with you. I
Good.
go to restaurants and I don't even need the menu. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me. Well, good. I could talk again. I could just sit here and talk to you if you're like, give me a few more minutes before I got to go back somewhere. Like that'd be dope. We can do that. But
Yeah.
we'll yield you back your time for your birthday and your day.
Thank you. Of
Awesome. Thank you for joining us on the Pacific Northwest Showdown.
course. Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, Mikaela, how amazing was it that we got to talk with Doug Baldwin not once, but twice for this amazing anniversary episode, kicking off season 2. We talked to him twice. It seems appropriate. Maybe for next year we have to talk to him 3 times. I don't know.
There we go.
Just make it a traditional thing. Like,
yeah, he was so nice to talk to.
Yeah.
And it felt like we've known him for a long time.
Yeah.
Just the ease that it was talking to him about
yeah,
mental health, the Seahawks,
Applebee's,
his kids, embarrassing moments at the mall,
Mhm.
Santa Claus,
Yeah.
all of those things. But I do want to say, as we start season 2, to the C fam, to those who have listened to us over the last year, who have supported us, who have shown up and, shared with their friends, their family on social media.
Yeah.
For people to listen to the Pacific Northwest Showdown podcast, how much we value you and appreciate you. And the connections that we've made with so many of you mean a lot more to us. And I think you realize.
Yeah.
And, we've met a lot of people in person.
Yeah. And it's been, I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not usually the person that's like, I want to go meet all the people. I'm kind of like, I'm fine. But this has been quite the experience. Like, I think for me, I got involved. You all might know, Mikaela did the first 3 episodes kind of solo. Right. And then, I sort of offered, I was like, hey, if you want somebody to talk to who doesn't know anything about what you're talking about, I can talk to you on this thing. And it's just kind of turned into this whole bigger thing, I think, for us, for our relationship, for what we do together and how we're kind of coming out of this whole pandemic and everything else, going to all these sporting events, like she said, meeting all of you. It's been really incredible. And I think, everybody that knows me and that's known me for a long time is like so surprised, but not at this point, but they were really surprised I was even doing anything about sports. And now so many of them are so grateful that I'm part of this, because it's opened up like more in my relationships with other people about sports and bonding over things and like, oh my gosh, did you see the game and whatever. And so I'm thankful that you all have welcomed me and my #learning sports self, because, it's been a real adventure. It's actually, I'm going to be honest, it's been a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. So, for myself, like, I knew it'd be fun to be with Mikaela and do all that, but I didn't know that I was going to be having so much fun with sports, which
welcome to my world.
If I want to see her, that's what I've got to do. Right. So, I've got to
pretty much,
I'm like, otherwise I'm just like, okay, you're watching that again. Okay, great. But now I can be like, oh my gosh, did you see, so-and-so?
Yeah. Think about the last year. So I just want to give a very special shout out to the Ball Hawks podcast.
Yeah.
Steve and Chris, who had initially invited me on to their podcast. It was the first podcast I had ever done.
Yeah.
I was super nervous. I purchased a microphone just for that episode. And then they had asked me, Mikaela, when are you starting your own podcast?
Because you're really good at this.
I appreciate it.
You are.
And I didn't really take it seriously, but my brother had listened to it and he goes, Mikaela, you're like the next Joy Taylor. And first of all, those are big shoes to fill. Everybody knows how great Joy Taylor is. I'm nowhere near that level, but it really, it made me
and from your brother, that's like, that's a good compliment.
That's a great compliment.
Yeah.
So he, initially he was supposed to be my co-host.
Yeah, he was.
Ryan.
We're calling you out, Ryan.
You were supposed to be my co-host. But I got super excited. Yeah. He's very busy. He works like
a lot,
his butt off. So the first 3 episodes I did solo. Episode 1 was with Marcus Trufant. I was super grateful and lucky to get to have him on as episode 1, season 1, Pacific Northwest Showdown. After 3 episodes, I was like, I can't carry this podcast on my own. I need somebody.
Yeah.
And Kate is a really good talker and has a great voice.
It's in my genetics.
It's so I didn't care whether she knew sports or not. She had a really good, she had a lot to bring to the table. And I like to say that she is part of why everybody loves this show. is her fun comments and her voice and what she brings to the table. She's so incredibly smart and has learned the sports. Oh gosh, it makes me emotional. Just like the getting to share this experience with my wife.
Yeah.
And to go to all the sporting events and to get to meet the people that we get to meet. It wouldn't feel the way it feels without her next to me doing this and getting to know you guys. So thank you to my beautiful wife who stepped in and has done all of the things, has dedicated so much time to help doing the research for the podcast, looking up, what are the records of the teams? How did they do this week? And how are we going to report in the Showdown Lowdown? I mean, literally countless hours have gone into this and a whole lot of money has gone into this. And she's been nothing but supportive this entire time. Never once has she hesitated or asked questions or say we shouldn't do that. She's been fully supportive this entire time. So shout out to this one. How are we doing that? Shout out to this one for being just like such a wonderful person and supportive wife. And I think that makes a healthy relationship too, is just making sure that you're showing up for the things that the other person's passionate about. And Kate knows that if she asks me to go to a doTERRA event or something that she is passionate about, that I would show up and be there. And I try to impress her with my like essential oil knowledge, which I did not have prior to meeting Kate. So
funny.
Sometimes I'll say something about essential oils and she's like, ooh. And anytime she says something about sports, I'm like, hey girl.
And if she doesn't notice that I've said something about sports, because now it's not as nearly as impressive as it used to be. If I say something, I'll be like, did you hear what I said? And then she's like, oh yeah, babe, good job. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I'm still hashtag learning sports.
She knows sports. And that's the thing, right? She's starting to know sports so much that it doesn't catch me by surprise as much anymore. I'm just like having normal conversation with Kate about the things and she's asking questions and I'm like, yeah. And so it's really cool. But anyways, that being said, it's just transformed this podcast and the people that we've gotten to interview and meet.
And a lot of that's because of all of you out there too, right? Offering up suggestions and like tagging folks and some of these things wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all of you out there, asking for it to happen and then it working out. So
like Dave Sims reached out because one of you tagged him in wanting to have him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Doug Baldwin did the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And, KJ Wright, I had the pleasure of meeting on my 30th birthday at the field to table experience at Lumen Field. And that's how we got connected. And Allie Watt, I'm grateful for the OL Reign and their marketing department and getting us connected to get to interview Allie Watt.
Yeah.
And, Brad Tucker, the same thing with the Seawolves.
Yeah.
Just super grateful for their communications department.
Yep.
And people that I had connections with
college. You didn't even know.
We didn't realize, initially. And so the people that we've had on, the people that we've gotten to connect with, and especially the fellow fans that love Seattle sports.
Yeah.
You are literally why we're doing this.
100%.
And again, just super grateful. Thank you for supporting Women Talking Sports. Thank you for supporting, I'm going to say it, the LGBTQ community, because you all know that we're married and we're doing this. Yes, we are married.
2 women are married.
So thank you for supporting us and for sharing the podcast. Please continue to do so.
Yeah.
Get the word out there. This is season 2. We're starting off strong.
Heck yeah.
And
we have more guest ideas coming up for season 2.
We got some more guests coming up.
Got a few things in the pipeline.
So excited to see what season 2 has to offer. Don't stop tagging people that you want on the show, because maybe they'll reach out and they'll show up. So
you never know.
You have your part to do, CFAM. We have our part to do, and we're all in this together. Let's go.
Let's do it.
And remember, above all else, take care of your heart and mind. Did I do that backwards?
You did. You usually say it the other way around. Do you want to try that again?
Let's try it again.
Okay, here you go. Take 2 and go.
Take care of your heart and mind. Above all else.
Until next time. Hey. Wait, that's not how we start this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Marvel moment, Marvel moment, Marvel moment, Marvel moment. Hey. There
What's
we go.
that?
So I just want to say happy 1 year anniversary of the podcast. I got you a present.
Ooh, what's the present?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here, hold on. Here it is. Wait, I dropped it almost. Sorry. Okay, here it is. Happy anniversary.
Blank page of paper.
Well, paper is the official gift for 1 year anniversaries. So, I got you a piece of paper.
Is it?
Yeah, every year for an anniversary has like a specific gift type that you're supposed to give.
Yeah.
And the first year is paper. So you get a piece of paper.
Well, thank you.
Well, I mean, it has so much potential.
Yeah.
It's blank. We could use it to write down like our goals
Mm-hmm.
or our ideas.
Okay.
Or even about like, what guests we're gonna have on for next season.
All right.
You wouldn't want to get that confused with like a shopping list or something like that,
No.
but you could write a lot of things on it, or you could fold it up
Mm-hmm.
to sports related like things, like when I was in school
A
and kids
football.
would fold it into a
I
football.
don't know if I remember how to do that.
We could probably figure it out, right? Or you could do some other cool origami stuff and
Yeah.
make like a cup or a frog out of it. You'd have to like make it into a square first. There's lots of things you can do. It's a great gift, is what it is. It's a wonderful gift, that piece of paper.
Actually, maybe I do remember how to make a football.
Maybe it's going to happen right here, right now. Who knows?
So you would do a hamburger and then a hot dog.
Hamburger,
and
then
you
hot
do
dog.
triangles.
So for people who haven't been in school for a long time, a hamburger fold is where you have the paper portrait style and you fold the top down to touch the bottom. Hot dog is where you have the paper also portrait side, but you fold the sides in together to be skinny.
Hold on. Forgot you got to make it like an arrow.
An arrow
And then
would
you got to
be
tuck it in.
like triangular. Let's see if she can do it.
It's in.
Tuck it in. That.
Boom.
She did it.
You ready?
It's officially, let's see. Oh, that went pretty
It went
far.
somewhere.
I don't even actually know where that went.
Well, thank you for my 1 year anniversary gift. I got you nothing. You have my love.
I was like, I feel like you've given me a lot for this, but I also accept nothing. Although you know where the paper is kept if you want to give me a piece of paper in return later when we're off the air quotes
This
air.
has words.
Ooh, a script. So that I don't forget what I'm saying because I'm #learning sports.
There you go.
So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us. And if you're still here, you probably know all of the social media platforms to find us on. But in case you don't, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we are on TikTok. And we are at PNW Showdown on all of those locations. So come give us a follow, like some stuff, see what's going on. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We're now doing things apparently on video that are showing up on like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, we are.
You could also follow over there if you want, if you actually want to look at us while we're talking, which maybe you don't. And you know what? I totally understand that. You are welcome to just listen to the audio only if that is your vibe. So there we go. Thanks for tuning in.
For tuning in to the Pacific Northwest Showdown podcast.
Bye.